Hi, and welcome to the PEPP Story Show. I'm Ricky Arundel, and tonight I'm going to be looking at the topic of audience engagement. How and why do we need to get the audience more involved, whether that's online or offline? Let's get into it. So, welcome to the show, and tonight I'm going to be looking at audience engagement and how and why we get that in level of involvement. Um, I have found, obviously, this year, well, this last 12 months, doing things online, that audience engagement is a much more challenging task online, and that's obviously because I can't see who's here. I get a little notification to say a number of people are watching. I might occasionally notice some comments are coming in, and I hope tonight there are some comments because I'd actually like to, because that is obviously one of the primary ways of engagement, but there are other ways of engagement, and I want to look at this whole process. What do we mean by engagement? Why do we need to get it going? So obviously, we're looking at this whole purpose, experience, passion, performance. Where does engagement fit in? It's definitely in the performance area. This is part of the whole, and it's a big topic, as you can see. We spent the whole week looking at various different aspects of performance, and engagement is part of the performance because it's not just about getting people involved. It's about engaging them in a way that helps to make the presentation more effective, helps to make the message more memorable. Don't forget, all the time it's about, I need you to remember my message. That's the number one objective when you're trying to deliver a speech, or when you're delivering a speech. Get that level of involvement. And I told you some time back in this month, I've forgotten exactly when, a friend of mine, Wayne Pickering in the United States, the Mango Man from Daytona Beach, Florida, I asked him, what is the one thing he knew at the time we were talking that he wished he'd known 10, 15 years earlier when he started his out as a professional speaker. He said, that's easy. Just, this is show business. This is show business. We're in the entertainment business. We're competing for people's time, and that time is going to be involved in, mostly, we like entertainment, don't we? We're watching a movie. I'm delivering this show now. There's a really good program on television that I love to watch. I'll catch it up. Pottery Throwdown. I don't know why I love that, and it's now become primetime telly, but it's absolutely amazing. But it's all, and actually, it's about show business. When you watch it, it's turned into a show, and so that's what we're competing with. Do you watch this, or do you go and watch the Pottery Showdown? And I guess Pottery Showdown's got a lot more money, a lot more characters. It's probably more engaging. So, and there we are. What is it that's going on? Well, I'm engaged because I have some interest in it. If I'm watching a program on television I have no interest in, I'm not going to engage in it. I'm not going to engage in what's going on. And that brings us to the first. I've got 10 engagement areas I want to look at tonight. There are more, but I think these are the primary 10 that you need to think about when you're putting a speech together, when you're thinking about, how do I engage my audience? Now, I will say, don't overdo this. There are a lot of people hate it when you get involved in some really, really embarrassing. It feels embarrassing, awkward, difficult, group exercise that the whole audience has to get involved with. Turn to the right person, person behind you, shake their hand. Oh, and everybody goes, oh, no, please don't do that. That's not necessarily engagement. That's not helping you to remember things about the presentation. That's sometimes just engagement for the sake of getting the audience wound up, getting the audience involved. Engagement isn't necessarily always about the audience doing something. And in fact, the first thing I want to talk about is powerful personal stories. Just remember, we've talked about this a number of times. I've talked about storytelling. When they've done research with storytellers and doing an MRI scan on them while they're telling a story, and take the person, the listeners, put them in an MRI and watch their brain patterns while they're listening to the story, what we find is it's almost identical. When you tell a great story, the audience is tuned in completely. They feel the same emotions that you feel as the storyteller. And therefore, you're engaging people completely and totally engaged. And it's very, very memorable. So there's no question about it. The number one tool for audience engagement is storytelling. And that's why when you look at TEDx talks and you look at the talks that have really got millions of views, they're always packed full of great stories. Okay, it's also some topics are much more some topics attract more attention anyway, but no question about it. Good, powerful stories get you involved. Now, one of my friends, as a professional speaker, really hates audience participation. That's the thing he actually hates. And I'm sure he won't mind me telling it. Graham Davis, absolutely great coaches a lot of MPs, a lot of people in Parliament on speaking, and is a fabulous coach. Has been involved right from the beginning in helping set up the Professional Speaking Association, but he hates audience participation. I've watched him walk out the back of the room when somebody started it. Now, if I ask him if he gets involved in audience engagement, he might say no, but in fact he does. And he's an extraordinarily good speaker at engaging the audience because he uses humor. He does after dinner speaking. His humor is quite cutting, but it's very, very funny. And I have so many brilliant jokes that I have heard from Graham. And that is one of the powerful tools of engaging the audience. Now, I'm going to mention here one important thing about humor, and that's the connection between the audience and the layout. I'm going to look at it at the very end of this tonight. I'm going to show you some layouts and some of the challenges and some of the benefits of different layouts of the room. If you control what's going on, you need to think about the layout. Because if, for example, you have a big room that can seat 200 people and 100 people arrive, I will guarantee they will spread out. Maybe a few groups and people together, but they will start to spread out. And I've seen this happen. I've been at a conference center where a large conference area was being used for the speaking. And if they didn't rope off certain areas of the conference area and say, no, you can't sit there, you're all going to sit here, everybody would have spread themselves back, sitting, lots and lots of room around them. And the problem is, if you've got a lot of room around you, you don't laugh as much. And we know that. One of the rules I've always said, if you've got a meeting room and you're organizing, if you're expecting 50 people, put out 40 seats. If 50 turn out, get the spare seats out from the back. Say, oh, didn't expect so many. Pack everybody in so they're all connected up to each other. The more people are actually touching each other, the better. Okay? Maybe not going to do that this year. COVID has stopped that, but never mind. Okay? If you can get people closer together, they're more likely to laugh, which is why people are challenging at the moment. And you look at all the live shows on TV, trying to get people engaged and laughing is becoming a huge, huge problem. So there we go. Two most important. There's an old joke around. People say, is it important to put humor into your speech? Answer, only if you want to get paid. We love to laugh. If you look at comedians now are storytellers. They can fill stadiums. They can certainly fill arenas and just tell stories, tell jokes. And they're not just jokes. They're actually personal stuff. They may be twisted and wound around. They tell stories about observation and people laugh. And we spend money and go and pack arenas to listen to comedians doing that. It's humor. Really important to get humor, self-deprecating humor as well. I don't mean go up and tell jokes. Tell stories that are funny, stories about life, stories about kids, stories from your own life, stuff that made everybody laugh. But try them out first. This is what comedians do. They'll try them out on a few friends, try them out, do a little gig here and there until you've got the humor right. Work them out, write them down, make sure you've got good humorous stories. I'm going to do a whole session on humor. Not my speciality, but I know I have to have humor in my thing. So number 3, ask questions. Same thing, you can ask questions all the time. Now, on some interactive stuff. If I'm doing Zoom calls, every Friday I get together with a bunch of professional speakers. There's 20 or 30 of us each Friday, and we get together, and one person hosts it, and they host it by asking a question. What's the biggest success you've had this week? How did you get started in the speaking business? What's the number one thing you want for Christmas? What's your plan for the year? Asking questions. Those are really engaging sessions. Everybody gets involved. We go around. Everybody puts a bit in. Everybody adds a bit in. The whole thing is highly interactive. We don't get any stilted silences. It's a lot of fun, and people like it. So ask questions. Ask questions. You want get them to write things down, get them to share it with each other, but ask questions as much as you can. What's the difference between sex and gender? One of the big questions I ask on my transgender awareness programs. What's the difference between sex and gender? Okay, fine. Got to put you in pairs, put you in a group, go talk about it, and then come back and we'll discuss it. That's got people involved. I'm asking a question, making them think, making them talk about it. That's a really effective way of getting people involved, getting them engaged in your topic. Have good questions. Think about the questions that you need to ask. And I'll come back to some other areas on that. A simple one that you can use that gets engagement. How many people here have been to Greece? Now, I've got an audience here to look at. If I was on Zoom, I could do that. Certainly on a stage, I could put that. Now, if I say how many people have been to Greece, there'll be a few little hands all sort of go up, and I'll get a little flutter of activity. I see that on Zoom as well. Now, if I just say, right, how many people have to do that? How many people press the raise your hand. Let me see how many have done it. Put your hand up. Some people are using, little flags on Zoom now, or little cards. Put your card up and show me ups, or down. How many of you? Can you see how you can do various things to get people involved? But if you don't prompt people, don't actually encourage a specific level of activity, those questions sometimes disappear. So you're asking a question, and sometimes if it's a simple answer like a poll, and that's one of the things you can do online, rather than just saying, right, put your hand up, say, right, we're going to do a poll. Now, there's lots of software and technology you can use, Mentimeter, Slido, Aha Slides. These are various different tools that are available, and they're mostly, there are free versions of these that you can use for the odd speech. If you do them a lot, you'll have to pay. But the simple thing, all that happens is a QR code comes up on screen. You share that on screen. People just basically point their camera at it, and boom, takes them to a slide. The questions are there. You preset the questions, obviously. And therefore, your audience can then engage by responding to the poll question. What's the difference? Sex and gender is probably not an appropriate one. How many people? Oh God, can't even think. I haven't even got one coming to mind at the moment. You're going to just put a poll for how many people are prefer working at home to work. This is one I saw yesterday. Simple poll. Where are you most productive? In the office? Okay. At home? In a cafe? Or other? Boom. What's your share? And it turns out 55% prefer in the office, about 45% in the office. There's only a small amount of people like working in cafes. I love working in cafes. But can you see there's an involvement? So now we can move on to the next one, which is audience participation. Now, things I would suggest on this is the more you want people to participate, and I do some stuff which is quite scary, and I don't do it at the beginning. I do some things at the beginning. For example, when I'm doing a public speaking course, one of the things I want to talk about and just get people thinking about is their level of confidence when they're talking to people. So I do a little exercise, get people face to face in pairs, sit down. This is a pairs. I'll come to that in a second. And basically ask, I like myself because, tell each other why you like each other. So that's a little pairs exercise. I've got a whole bunch of different exercises where I get people standing up and doing things in pairs. I know my friend Graham hates that, but they work for the kind of workshops and keynotes I'm doing on public speaking. When I'm doing my trans awareness workshop, what's different between sex and gender? Let's have a talk about that. So get people talking about it. What's the greatest fear that human beings have? Have a little chat amongst the group, and then let's get some feedback. I find that by getting people talking about it first and then feeding back helps. I've also noticed that the more I get people doing stuff, engaging, the more they're likely to ask questions later on. And obviously, that's a huge part of audience engagement that we want, is the audience asking me questions. I encourage questions throughout the show and throughout these events, trying to get people to get back to me and tell me what's going on. So audience participation, whole range of different things we can do. Be a little bit careful. I think it's better to build those in more and more as people get used to you, as people get more into the presentation, they're more likely to get involved as long as the presentation's going well. Pairing and group exercises. Now, this can be really complex. If I'm doing a big, long workshop, I might send people off for quite a while into a group discussion, group exercise, come back. And might be away 15 minutes. Split them into groups of 3 or 4 around the room. I often if you're using a cabaret style layout for your room and you've already got people set out in tables of 5, then you can get a lot of involvement and engagement on the tables in the groups already. So I arrange the room to suit the kind of presentation that I'm making. So bear in mind, you can pair people up, send people away in pairing. Online, we can do this as well. We can do this with breakout rooms. Now, Zoom has had breakout rooms for a long time. Google Meet has now got breakout room facility in it. And I've just had the upgrade to Teams. And wow, amazing breakout rooms. I haven't used them yet. Going to try those shortly. But also it's got a lot of added facilities because obviously it's run by Microsoft. They've really gone to town in making it a lot easier to use PowerPoint in your meetings. So I think it's going to be important. There's a lot being done there. It's going to be good to see what happens with it. Now, props, books and things. You can use props in all sorts of ways. One of the ways that I've seen a lot of people use their speakers, if they've got their books or various products, they will, hands up, who's done this? First one to hand up gets the book. Okay, fine. It's somebody at the back can just pass that back, and they'll pass it back from person to person, and people touch the book as they're going. It increases sales. Just one of the tricks they use. But you can engage and involve people with books, hand things out, give people things to read, to look, cards, all sorts of props and cards and things that you can use. Don't take people away from what you're doing. Make it sure it's a part of what you're doing and it works. But there are, you can use props as part of the audience engagement. Now, individual interaction. If I'm doing a kind of workshop where we're looking at how do we change work practices, for example, and I might be looking at managers, how do they recruit more people from the LGBT community, Muslim community, or whatever. And in those cases, I often like a horseshoe style layout, and I will move around the horseshoe, asking questions, engaging in directly with individuals about what they're doing, and then pass that over to somebody else. So I'll actually encourage communication through me to other people, and it's about individual engagement. People are being treated as individual. And of course, the thing that I've not mentioned here, and I've just realized isn't even there, one of the most important things of all is eye contact. I don't know why I didn't put that in, but obviously really, really, really important. Let's just get that up in a banner. Eye contact. When it comes to individual engagement, every time I look at individuals, and obviously here it's about my camera. I need to remember to look at my camera. Sometimes difficult. I've got stuff on screen. I've got various different bits and pieces I'm looking at here, but I try all the time to speak to the camera and talk to the camera. I don't have auto cue or anything like that going on, but by looking at the camera, talking to the camera, you see me looking at you, and that's important. Now, I think it's important that it isn't all the time. You don't want me staring at you, so I look away a little bit, and we look down here and just make sure that's not too much. When I'm speaking live, I make sure I look around the room at various different people. If it's being recorded, that's a kind of hybrid event, I always need to make sure I look at the camera to make sure that the people watching on video also feel that they're part of the audience. I'm talking to people at the front row, also talk to people on camera and talk to other, so that everybody, and it's about that, you don't just glance, you look and you hold it, maybe for a second or two, and then move on to somebody else. And keeping that eye contact, part of the engagement, makes people feel as if they're there. They can't just go off and do something else. So where are we got to? We're at right, video discussion. Another really good engagement method. I use videos within my workshops, in the longer ones more often. It's more difficult in the short ones because video engagement takes time. You've got to watch the video, and then I'm going to need to let you go and talk about it. So if I was doing it online, I'd show the video, then I'd say, okay, fine, I'm going to put you into breakout rooms, go and have a talk about that, come back, and then we'll have a group discussion. Or I'll get each group to report back. And I'm sure you've been in workshops where you've done that, where you go off, you do a syndicate. And we can do the same with case studies and scenarios. Now, for example, this is just one that I do. You're recruiting for new staff and have to improve representation from underrepresented communities, including the trans community, maybe Muslim community, etc. Now, discrimination is illegal, whether it's positive or negative. You can't just go out and recruit trans people. So how do you recruit people from the transgender LGBT community without being called out for discrimination? How do you do that? Now, there's a good discussion topic. I can then send people off into breakout rooms if I'm doing a workshop, or we can send, if it's on tables, people can discuss it on tables, or I can send people out to syndicate rooms with a group of topics to discuss, and then they can come back and feedback. So all of that helps to get people really involved, really engaged, and really much more enjoying the meeting. So finally, let me just have a look at the meeting room itself, and I've got a little slide here. You can't see that at the moment very well, so I'm just going to bring that into full view, and I will disappear while it happens. I think what I'll do is get rid of the all the other stuff around it. We don't need that for a minute. Right, so can you see here meeting room layouts? The first one there, the top left, that's a cabaret style where you have small round tables. Round tables are best, and you have 5 or 6 people around it, depending upon how many are in the meeting. I like this style for my trans workshops. If I've got 25 people there, I like them 5 to a table, and then I can get people talking to each other, and they'll engage. And I might move people around and swap them about a bit just to make sure that they don't spend the whole time just talking to the same group of people. The next one is theatre. Now, I told you I absolutely hate centre aisle. You can see the problem there, can't you? Speakers in the middle, screens in the middle, aisle down the centre. Doesn't work at all. Very difficult to get engagement with theatre style because people are sitting, everybody's behind you, to your left, right. You don't naturally see anybody else while you're sitting in theatre style. So this is not a good style for audience engagement. So I tend to avoid it if I possibly can and have a better, I'd rather have a bigger room with tables in it. Now, just back from that, just below that, you'll see the classroom style, same thing. Now, this is what I do. If I've booked a room that's quite large and then find I haven't got as many people coming as I'd like, I get tables put in, pack the room out. And when people arrive, it looks like, oh my God, it's a full room. It's all packed out. They didn't know that originally it was going to be theatre style, and we didn't get as many. I want the audience to feel this is a good event. And if I haven't quite got as many people as I'd like there, I will change the environment so it feels like it's a packed room. Everybody, this is what we expected. And that makes people feel more comfortable, more engaged, more fabulous. So U-shape. U-shape takes up a lot of space. Brilliant. I like it as a method of training. particularly if we're going to get engaged in lots of discussion and lots of talk around issues. So if we're looking at putting policies together and such like that's a really great way. And people do, because people can see everybody around the U shape, everybody gets involved and feels that they're part of the meeting. Now you'll see the left-hand corner herringbone. That's where it's a table form like classroom, but you put everything at an angle. That way you can see automatically that everybody can see a lot more people around the room. They can see people on their table. They can see people on other tables. It encourages more engagement than just a straightforward classroom. And finally, boardroom. That's the one on the right. And that works very well. It is designed for engagement because everybody's around one big table and you have a big engagement. I've done quite a few meetings on that sort of style. Not my favorite style. Far prefer a horseshoe or U-shape if I can. So those are some thoughts around meeting rooms. There are other styles that you can use, but the important thing is to think about the style of the meeting room in relation to the presentation you're going to make. So there we are. That's today. That's what we've been doing for today. I'll be back tomorrow with day 25 of my 31-day. Only another week to go. I'm hoping to get some. I'm working on a few people to get them in next week to have a chat to them. Don't forget, you can drop me a line at ricky@rickyarundel.com. Book yourself a free introductory speaking coaching session, and I'll help you put your speech together, help you look at ways that you can make it more engaging, more effective. But I hope that's given you some thoughts and ideas to how to make your presentations more engaging. Thank you for being with me tonight. I hope you've really enjoyed it. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my Sunday evening, watching a bit of pottery. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Take care.